We know that the number 1 is a multiplicative identity. It preserves the identity of an integer with which it's multiplied. In our previous lesson, we discussed an example to understand this concept. In this session, we will see one more concept about multiplication of integers. Let us begin. We know that multiplication is easy when we have one of the integers to be multiplied as 1. Then how about multiplying an integer with 0? Let's find out the answer to this. Consider the following problem. 3 is a whole number and we have to multiply it with 0. We know that any number multiplied by 0 is 0. Therefore, the answer to this question is 0. So, we can understand that any whole number when multiplied by 0 gives us 0. Let us see whether the property of multiplication with 0 is true for integers as well. We will continue with the above example. 3 is a whole number as well as an integer. Yes, it's a positive integer. It can clearly be seen in the above example that multiplying an integer with 0 gives us the answer as 0. Note that this will apply for negative integers as well. For example, the product of negative 4 and 0 is 0. Likewise, the product of negative 12 and 0 will also be 0. In general, the product of any integer, positive or negative, with 0 is always 0. This was a very easy concept about multiplication of integers. But we need to understand why we get 0 when we multiply any integer or a number with 0. There are many different ways in which we can understand this. Let's consider a simple one. In our earlier lessons based on multiplication of integers, we have seen that multiplication is repeated addition. So, if we have to multiply 2 with 3, we read it as 2 times 3. That means we have to add the number 2 3 times. So, we get the answer as 6. Now look at this question. How will you read this question? That's correct. It's 0 times 2. It means adding 0 twice like this. The result will be 0. And if the question was this, we would read it as 2 times 0. That means adding the number 2 0 times. Will this addition give us any value greater than 0? No, it cannot. If we are not adding the number 2 even once, then we aren't getting any value out of it. And that's how we get the answer as 0. I'm sure the concept of multiplying by 0 is now very clear.